Alright, so today we did in class the sketching of ellipses and all those formulas that go with it. And so what we're going to look at next is how to work backwards, where we're given information about an ellipse and we have to write the equation. So we do need to remember what that standard form is. So the standard form, x minus h squared over a squared plus y minus k squared over b squared equals 1. So what we really need to look for in order to write this equation is our center for h and k, and the distance between our center and our vertices and co-vertices so that we can find a and b. Once we know those three things, then we can write our equation. So it's really going to be about how can we use our given information to find all of those three pieces. So if I look at number 1 here, we're being given the vertices and the foci. So what it helps me to do is to sketch out what I know. And I'm not talking a full-on sketch, I'm just talking if I were to take my points. So 0, 8, that's up here, so that's a vertice. 0, negative 8, that's my other vertice. So I look at what direction are my vertices. Are they vertical or are they horizontal? So I'm just going to put like the outline of my equation right here with the pieces missing that I know I need to find. So this is going to help me with two things. One, it helps me with my center. I know my center has to be right in between, in the middle of my two vertices. So if I look for the middle of my two vertices, I get 0, 0. So I know my center. The second thing it tells me is it tells me one of the distances that I can put in my denominators. What is this distance right here? Or what is this distance here? That distance is either A or B. Because it's vertical, I know that it's going to be my B, because it's in the y direction, so it has to go under my y, which is B. So this distance is 8. So 8 squared is going to be what goes in my denominator under y. So now the last piece, how to find A, is going to be what we spend the rest of our time on here. So I know my foci, or foci, are 0, 4, and negative 4. So this distance here is 4. Well, that's a f. That's our focal length. So I know that f is equal to 4. So if I use our f squared equals the absolute value of a squared minus b squared, I can find a. So 4 squared equals, I don't know what a squared is, but I know b squared is 64. So then I would have 16 equals, now to make sure that this stays positive so I can drop the absolute value, I'm going to make it 64 minus a squared, because I know that 64 is the bigger number. And we know that because that was our major axis. So by switching the order to 64 minus a squared, I'm assuring I get a positive answer so that I can actually square root it. So then when I subtract 64 to both sides, we're going to get negative 48 equals negative a squared. So when we divide by the negative, we get a squared is 48. So I know that a squared is 48. So I don't need to worry about finding the square root because I need a squared down there. So if I go and I just simplify the pieces that we've plugged in, I can write the equation as x squared over 48 plus y squared over 64 equals 1. And we have our equation. So again, by using just a simple sketch of what we know, we were able to find the center, because it has to be in the middle of the vertices, and we were able to find f, because we were given the foci, so that we could use our focal length formula. So this is how we would do it if we were given these two pieces of information. But we're not always given these two pieces. So how can we do it if we were given something else? So if we look at number 2, we're given the foci and the major axis length. So again, I'm going to do my little sketch. So over here, I have 2, 0. That's one focus. And I have negative 2, 0. That's my other focus. So that means that my center, so again, I can use the two foci as to help me find my center, because I know it has to be in the middle. So I have x minus blank squared over something and y minus something squared over something equals 1. So there's my generic outline for my equation. My center, in this case, would be 0, 0, because that's what's right in the middle of my foci. Now, we don't have enough yet to do A or B, but I do know that F here is a distance of 2, so negative 2 and 2, so a distance of 2. But it also tells me this thing about our major axis length. That means from vertex to vertex, the whole length is 6. So if the whole length is 6, then how far from the center is each vertex? So if the whole length is 6, that means it'd be 3 this way and 3 this way, putting me at 3, 0 and negative 3, 0. So by using the length part to help us figure out at least what the distance from the center is, we can go from the center to the vertex to figure out what that ordered pair might be. So we know the distance now here is 3. So now, does that go under x or y? So because it's a horizontal relationship, so everything's in a horizontal line, that means it goes under x. So we're going to have 3 squared underneath x. And then just like in the one before, I'm going to use this focal length to help me find b. So 2 squared, which is 4, equals the absolute value of a squared, which is 9, minus b squared. So again, I know 9 is the bigger number because that was our major axis. So I can make sure by keeping it 9 minus b squared that I'm going to have a positive square root. So I subtract 9 to both sides, divide by the negative, and I get that b squared is 5. So just simplify what we have, x squared over 9 plus y squared over 5 equals 1, and we have our equation. So hopefully you've kind of seen how the focus is, whenever we're given the focus, we're going to tend to need to use this focus formula, the focal length formula. The major axis is going to help us with our vertices, so it's another way that we're given that information. Okay, so these first two were around 0, 0, so it made our equations a little bit nicer to find. But what happens when we move our center off of 0, 0? And so that's what our last example here is going to be about. So we're given the same type of information as number 2. The difference, it's not around 0, 0. I'm going to start it the same way though. I'm going to do a little sketch to see what I have and where it is in relation to each other. So we have 0, 0 for one focus and 4, 0 for my other focus. So right now, again, I know that it's a horizontal relationship, so I know that my bigger number is going to go under x. So again, I'm going to write my outline for my equation just so that I know what I need to fill in, and I'll fill it in as I find it. So again, I know my center has to be right in the middle of my foci. So I'm going to figure out what's the middle of 0, 0 and 4, 0. So this one might be a little obvious to see, but if you're not sure, do your midpoint formula. That'll always give you your center, or the middle, I should say. So here our middle will just be 2, 0. So that means we'll have x minus 2, y minus 0. There's our center. Our focal length, so now the distance between the center and the focus is 2. And we were also told that our major axis has a length of 8. So for major axis, again, because these are horizontal, my major axis has to go from my center 4 and 4. So if I go 4 up from 2, I'm going to be at 6, 0. If I go 4 down, whoops, not 6, 4. If I go 4 in the other direction, I'll be at negative 2, 0. So it didn't ask for the ordered pairs, but just so you can see how it would look graphically if we were going to put it together. What we care about is that this distance of 4. So that's telling us our A. So that distance of 4 would go under our x, because again we have a horizontal relationship. And now we have enough information to use our focal length, our f and our a, to help us find b squared. So 2 squared is 4, and then we'll have 16 minus b squared. So again, I know 4 squared is the bigger number, so I can drop my absolute value, and we'll get negative 12 equals negative b squared, so b squared is 12. So now I just simplify what I have over 16, and y squared over 12 equals 1, and you have your equation. So the one that we're going to do in class tomorrow, we're going to be given the vertices and the eccentricity. So we're going to be given a totally different piece of information than what we were given on all 3 of these, where we were given the foci for all 3. So again, come with questions. A lot of it is going to have to do with knowing the formulas and the relationships between your ordered pairs and your points. But come with questions. Like I said, we have one more to do in class before we work on our homework for today.